e te iwi and welcome to Inside Netball, a podcast dedicated to he kōrero poitara whiti, netball chat, both here in Aotearoa, New Zealand and around the world. Joining me today are Sky Sport presenters and commentators, Storm Purvis and Jenny Woods.
Kia ora. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Exciting kōrero today, Korua. We have the grand final of the National Netball League set for this Sunday, and we haven't had much kōrero on this competition of late, so it's very great timing for it. First of all, our thoughts on the competition as a whole.
Love it. I think you cannot measure just what it's done for the game, and I think, you know, over the last, well, it used to be Becco, didn't it? Now it's National Netball League, and you look at the standard of players and that, you know, that we have coming up into the Silver Ferns, it's doing exactly the job it was meant to do.
And giving players, ANZ Premiership contracted players, the ability to play week in and week out in a competition that runs at the same time. Previously, there was no competition that would run at the same time. So if you were a bench player, you were sitting on the bench for weeks on end and then having to cramp a whole lot of netball in the off-season. So it's really great to see the likes of Xavier Tui, who's killing it, by the way, at the moment, playing week in and week out alongside a lot of high-quality players in a competition that's run as close to the ANZ Premiership as they can get. Yeah, I think it's a really great comp.
And it's done its job, hasn't it? Because, you know, a bit of drama in the last week or two in the ANZ Premiership with, you know, George Fisher and, you know, the injury crisis and the tactics. Up pops, you know, Amelia Walmsley, fresh out of the Comets, slips in, does a great job. And I think, you know, that's just how it should be.
And talking about the Comets, when we think about like the coach of the Comets, Temepara Bailey, former Silver Fern, we've got Julie Seymour down at Mainland. It's opened up all these possibilities, other pathways for former professionals, coaches, and all of these likes as well.
I think the one thing that needs, though, is a sponsor. I mean, you know, it's such a good product. And, you know, Becco were terrific. They were there for a few years. They've gone. Anyone out there, put your money on it.
Yeah. Well, it's been great. You mentioned the inclusion of these players that have been able to, you know, step up to the ANZ Premiership. And there was a time where I kind of used to look at the tier below our ANZ Premiership, and Central Manawa were so strong. And, of course, they're three-time champions in the National Netball League of the past. But this time, in the grand final, we've got two Auckland teams in the grand final, which goes to show that, you know, all the regions are being more plentiful with players.
Isn't it funny that over the years the NNL grand finals, or at least the top of the table, have kind of mirrored that of the ANZ Premiership? You talk about Central, obviously the Pulse have just enjoyed a pretty good reign. Before that it was the Southern Blast when the Steel were top of the table, and now it's the two Auckland teams. Same goes in the ANZ Premiership. So clearly the franchises and regions are working together really well to have that reflect one another. So it's actually really interesting that that's the way it's fallen.
Another little interesting thing I noticed last week was in the Marvels, was it the Marvels? Yes, it was. The Marvels playing Manawa. And the Marvels shooting circle, and I think I'm sure I've got this right, was indeed the Central Manawa shooting circle of just a few years ago at one point. It was Xavier Tui and Braxton Tarini, because I thought, oh, I'm sure I know those players. Looked up my book, and sure enough, they were. So, yes, interesting that, you know, the players are going around.
Now, Storm, you were a part of the Stars, and obviously the Comets were in your breathing space at trainings and things like that. How did you train with them or see the development in those young players?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the same this year. I think it might be a little bit separate the way it's run, but obviously we had Bubby involved in the Stars as an assistant coach and leading the Becco team, so pretty hard for her to juggle those two situations, but it was great for us because we got to train alongside these girls and gave them opportunities to train against us, prepare themselves for their game. We used Vika Qualoto quite a bit last year. She's another one who's performing out of her skin this year in the NNL. And actually prior to that, when I was at the Mystics, I had a really bad injury and I was coming back and I was able to play a quarter for the Marvels. So I've actually played in the Becco competition as a
You've done it all.
which was really strange, but great that they have that, I guess, pathway for players who are coming back from injury. Players like Claire O'Brien, who hasn't managed to sort of break into an ANZ team after having a bad situation in the Suncorp, but she's playing for the Marvels week in and week out, former Swifts player. And so it's a competition for all that serves many purposes, and it's great to see not only is it laying foundation for players to play week in and week out, but it's adding as another way for players who are injured, players who are a little bit older to get some court time and kind of get themselves out there again.
Phoenix Karaka too. I mean, I think she'll be coming back from a baby. She is coming back from a baby, but I think that's will probably be the way she comes in. So
yes,
you're right, Storm. It's terrific.
There's also Jennifer O'Connell down south at the Steel. She was named, as somewhere in the Southern Blast mix as well. And, when you think about players that have come through that competition, there are names like Tiana Metuaro, Renee Savatinea, Kiana Williams, Amelia Walmsley, as we've already mentioned, Georgia Tong, Maya Wilson, Mila Rielu Buchanan. So all those pillars and all that foundation work, we're starting to see it, reap the rewards. Where do we see this competition going? And is there room for it to grow and coming in the future? I mean, what are kind of the regulations for Beko? Because there's no age limit on National Netball League, is there?
There's no age limit, but I know when I was playing there was a limit on how many ANZ quarters you had played before you could take the court. So I had to get an exemption to play because I was coming back from injury. I actually am not sure if those limits are still in play, but Jenny, you talked about getting a sponsor. That would be great.
Yes.
Getting more airtime, seeing it more. But as the competition as a whole, I think you talk about all those players. In the past, players who have come into the professional scene have had to take a couple of years before they're ready to play week in and week out in the ANZ, whereas now they're coming fresh out of Beko and they're starting and playing full games because they've had that time in a league similar or a league just below. So I think it's already serving its purpose really, really well.
Yeah, I think the thing you touched on before too, it's not just the players, it's the coaches. And you see that crop of coaches coming through, very tricky to say, has to be good for the game, because it used to be that, just these 6 coaches would get thrust into the big time, the limelight. And, it's not easy, well, not that I've been one, but I can imagine just how difficult it would be to be a coach. You'd be juggling so many things that I think it's probably good that they have this sort of grounding before they get up into the big time.
Yeah, that's right. And talking about the big time, how helpful is it to have all these National Netball League games on Sky Sport for players to be exposed to playing on camera, playing in front of big crowds?
Playing on camera and being interviewed pre and post game, we're obviously biased in that realm, but it's great to be able to have players come in and be so happy to be interviewed and just seeing the personalities so that when they get to the big time that they're happy to do it, ready to do it. But yeah, it's crowds and understanding the situation. It's, planning your game day. There's more to it than just rocking up an hour before a club game and just strapping and getting ready to go. Yeah. It's what you're eating in the morning. It's whether you're doing a walkthrough. It's what your mental prep is, and deciding all those things at a young age is great because, like I said before, it's allowing these players to come into the ANZ and just be ready to go.
Now, the Northern Comets are undefeated this season. They have had a draw, but we've caught up with Temepara Bailey, who will be leading the Comets against the Northern Marvels this weekend. Here's what she had to say.
Yeah, I think this Auckland region has always been a competitive force. I think there's been a lot of players in the past, myself included, when I was younger, and thought that moving into play at Auckland Netball Centre was the only way that you were going to get recognised and the only competition that you had out there. I think as the years have progressed and Netball New Zealand have changed how centres operate, and then they brought them in all as one hub and then separated them back out at centres, has probably made them realise, and probably players too, because you go into Auckland, it's a big pond, so you can only get picked, I think there's 12 players that get picked for reps. So then you start to realise as a player and now a parent of players that actually if you stay in your own region, you get to go away to nationals and you'll still get seen, because Netball New Zealand do a great job of having selectors at all tournaments and getting noticed in that way as well. So I think it has always been strong. However, bringing the Comets back into the Comets and the Stars into the South Auckland area, I think it's just ignited it again, and it's very exciting for the future. I don't know what the secret is. It's been a lot of hard work put in by the girls, a lot of truths been said, a lot of honesty, which we kind of wanted as part of one of our values from the beginning. And it's having a good mix of players, youth experience, and younger ones coming into the fold. Yeah, and I think that gutsy determinations that these South Aucklanders have, that will to want to win and know that they've got the support around them, especially in that community space as well, and wanting to do it not just for themselves, but their wider family, friends and community. I suppose it just goes back to what you've been doing throughout the season, what's worked and nailing that stuff. I think probably, and looking back at that Manawa game, we kind of focused on them a little bit too much, which kind of highlighted that we are doing some good stuff. Definitely look at the opposition, but need to make sure we do everything that we know works really well out there on court. And we talk about that consistent game, consistent quarters. That's yet to come for us. So hopefully it's on Sunday. But the girls are so excited and nervous, and I think the management team are the same as well.
Some Saviour Tui Smarts coming in. Oh, another big ball in. Oh, great take. Gee, they're asking a bit of Amelia Walmsley at the bat. And that time, well and truly up to it.
Yeah, she's definitely committed to the Comets. I think the Tactics were interested in her for their game this weekend, but she's chosen to be with the Comets, and we've supported that decision. And we're like, yes, good decision, Amelia. She's definitely, we name our team tonight, but tomorrow night at training, but she definitely will be part of the 10. She's been a consistent player that has produced when she's taken that court. It's been awesome to see her develop from when she came and trialled at our first trial for the Comets. She was this tall, long, kind of gangly young woman, I should say, that's there. But, you can see it in her that she's got more to offer. And with the S&C support that's been wrapped around her and the continuous trainings and I suppose the demand that we expect from players at this level, has put her in good stead, and she's taken it like with both horns and just rode on with it, and she's enjoying it. And I think at this level, that's the main thing for me as a coach, is that we provide an environment for these players to express themselves and who they are, because they do have talent. We don't want to shy them away from that, just let them go, but just sort of taper them in when we need to. And I think that's put us in good stead going forward, our off the court connections. I think initially is attitude and that little bit of mongrel that you can see in it, and just natural ability, because you can tame that back. And for me, fitness is not a big one. I think people kind of look at players and think, oh, they're not fit. You can train that. You can't train natural flair. You can't train attitude. They've got to bring that themselves, and that little bit of mongrel. So I think those are probably the three that I know I can work with and shape them into something to bring their skills out there to just showing little snippets of. So I think those are probably the three ingredients for a player that I see that maybe not outsiders see. I was thinking about it because everyone's like, oh, you're going into a final. And I think because I've experienced finals in the past, probably not as a player and particularly as a coach, but then I think about the bigger picture, and you're right, it's huge. It's massive. We've never been in a final as the Beko team, and we're on that pathway for players that are younger and want to achieve that stepping stone to the stars. So yeah, it's massive, and I don't know if I'm going to relay that to the players, because it might put that little bit extra pressure on them that they don't need. But I kind of feel it myself now, that it's been said, and you've actually said it as well. So it's massive. It's really cool. It's a cool environment. It's great for these girls at the Beko level to experience what a grand final is. And I think it's our job as management to make it the best experience we can leading into it. And then it's all up to them.
Kia ora, and thank you, Temepara Bailey. All the very best for this weekend. Wahinawa, before we leave this topic, who do you have, the Comets or the Marvels, and why?
Well, I can't look. I'll go first.
I'm feeling we're going to have the same.
Oh, well, I think we probably are. I mean, you can't look past the Comets. Having said that, both. I had a look at the scores. They're all really close. Those are the games that are very close. So it could go either way. But I think I was looking at that team the other day, looking at the coach, the way she goes about her business. I can't help it. I guess I'm biased because I am a bit of a Temepara fan, and I think the Comets will take it.
It is the Comets to lose, really. They have played the Marvels twice already and beaten them. I think just over the weekend they won by 6. So might have even been 8, 6 or 8. So it is theirs to lose. I feel like Amelia Walmsley, she's just an absolute star, and the Marvels are going to have to bring out a huge defensive effort if they're going to want to shut her down, because Savia Tui shot 100% last week for the Marvels and they still couldn't win.
Yeah.
So it's really going to come down to how the Marvels defence end can shut down this Comets end. But Ravinder, you and I will be calling that game. Can't
We
wait
will
for
be.
it.
Don't miss it. Sunday 2 p.m. Sky Sport 3. Okay, let's get into our next topic, Wahine Main. It's something. It's not a downer, but it is what it is. COVID-19 continues to spread around the world, and we're hearing about cases all the time. But in saying that, it also continues to impact our game, both here in New Zealand and around the world. So let's first start about how it's impacting our ANZ Premiership. Of course, the Pulse and Tactics are still yet to play their game from last round because of it. What do we think of it? And how will this impact the table?
There's all sorts of different formulae, aren't there? And I mean, I know there was interesting. I know we're going to talk about the Super League in a moment, but they had a situation leading up to their finals where one of the team, the Leeds Rhinos, had a breakout in the team, and so they couldn't play their last 2 games. So the rule in their playbook was that whichever side won the previous meetings got the points.
Oh wow!
And so that's how the Rhinos got through to the playoffs.
So they could do that this weekend then, just have
But it's
both.
not fair.
I mean,
though,
it's not really, but in this situation around the world, we're seeing,
I don't know
things
what's
aren't
fair.
necessarily fair. You've just got to go with what works
That's
and
it.
make a call and almost get over it, really.
Just another headache to add to Netball New Zealand's.
Yeah.
Not as bad as what the SSN are going through right now, though. It could
No.
always be worse. There is drama across the ditch.
There is.
Big time. Are you up to speed on that, Jen?
Well, I think I am, but you tell me if I am.
Okay.
You go first.
Well, so the drama that I've kind of caught up with is obviously between the Vixens and the Fever. The Fever not very happy that the Vixens supposedly refused to travel to Western Australia, which apparently is not true. And so there's been players coming out and resting their case, and the Fever coming out and apologising for their statements. You've got Sue Gordian, who's my favourite commentator across the ditch, who's also the GM of the Fever. There's a bit of a conflict of interest there, coming out and saying we're so disappointed. Obviously, Stacey Marinkovic is the Diamonds coach, but she's also the coach of the Fever, who now probably has these issues with a couple of these Vixens players who are in her Diamond squad. It just seems a huge cluster of
And it gets
drama.
thicker and murkier because now, because you can imagine the Fever, of course, having not beaten this season, never mind the fact that they're coming off, they were docked 12 championship points. So, they want because it's 4 points for a win in that competition. So they want every 4 points on offer. The Vixens, who are the defending champions, have only won 1 game. And I can imagine the Vixens are probably not exactly champing at the bit to head to Perth to play that game. So they might say, yeah, let's just split the points. But, it just adds up. And now, of course, it does seem to be the greater picture of COVID seems to be spreading. And I think it's just a nightmare. And that's why, going back to the UK, I really feel they need a blimmin' great pat on the back for completing that competition and completing it in style, because oh my goodness, they were working within all sorts of restrictions.
With no crowds, well, they had a speckled bunch of people here and there, but no crowd. I mean, when you think about revenue and the realities of money being generated for competition, to even run a competition like that with no gate is, I wouldn't even want to be there accounting right now. But you're right, Jenny, to see a grand final with no crowd, but them play to their fullest, and it's still the elbow high fives and
the players on the bench with the masks on and then whipping them off to run on court. It's just comical, isn't it? But though, they did a great job, and that final was actually great to watch, despite the score blowing out and the Lightning doing a great job there. It was still quite a spectacle. Great to see Beth Cobden playing out of her skin, English wing D, coming off 2 ACLs. Sam May, she used to play for the Swifts. I remember playing against her. She's just announced her retirement, so she had a spectacular final game at Gold Keep. So it was a real feel-good kind of final to watch. So
It was, and I was surprised actually, because I mean, in that Bath lineup, you had Serena Guthrie, Ebony Asuru Brown, Layla Gusgoth, and I thought, gee, that is a defence. I mean, that could just about go out and play internationals, that back line. But the thing I love, though, I've always been a little bit of a Sarah Frances Bayman fan, just because she really wears her heart on her sleeve, and you never had to guess what she was thinking. And she said after the game that it was well and truly in the bag, wasn't it? After it was a big win, but she just was so hot, but she couldn't take her jacket off because she was so superstitious. And I thought, oh, that's brilliant, all these funny little things. And I think Lisa Alexander might have chimed in with a little comment that she used to have funny little rituals like that too. So coaches are probably just as superstitious as all of us, any of us.
Yeah, most definitely. It was so. I felt like watching Sarah on the sideline. I felt like she coaches the way she used to play. Very vocal, standing up. She was all about it, throwing out instructions and all sorts of things. But I felt like really, really happy, and I felt like there was like a bit of a connection, seeing how she had played for the Pulse in the past. Like there was a little Kiwi connection there. Yeah. So congratulations to the Lightning, by the way.
Yeah, well, first win, first Super League title. I think they've been trying for.
That was their 4th grand final.
Wow.
And so you're right.
First time they've won. I think that league's been going 16 years actually, and I'm not going to pretend that I've been watching it for 16 years, but I've been watching it off and on the last few, and we've been able to in this part of the world, and you can just see the level coming up and coming up and coming up, and whether or not it's a mix of just more players around the world becoming more professional, or players that have been out in New Zealand and Australia then going back, or just you see just the whole level of the game, and perhaps as investment grows in the game in the UK, the standard will rise. And I mean, look at them, they're Commonwealth champions, they're Commonwealth Games next year.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like that Commonwealth Games gold was sort of the catalyst for the league growing. I agree with you, Jen, especially over the last couple of years. I feel like it's gone up a lot, almost doubled its intensity and its quality of netball for sure.
It was great to see so many players in that grand final who I didn't recognise. Yeah. I was like, wow, you guys have worked so hard. Not saying that you need the superstars, and you did name that there were a few there, but it was great to see those players on that big stage who aren't the big superstars around the world, but just played their guts out.
And interesting to see the team with the superstars didn't win.
That's very true.
And the players from Australia and New Zealand who had a crack in the ANZ but didn't quite make it and have gone over there and really reinvented themselves. I mean, the Bath captain was Kim Kamane. Her last name, she's married now, I can't remember her last name.
Borgia, I think.
Borgia.
Yeah.
And she's just amazing to watch, and I used to love coming up against her in the Vixens, but she just never really made it, thought she'd go over there, reinvent herself, and she's probably had an amazing career in that competition. So there's different sort of, I guess, elements and different people playing it for different reasons, and I think it's a great comp. I would have loved to have gone over there and played, had my knees not given out. I always said I'd finish my career by going and doing a season over there, so just stick to watching it.
Go over and coach.
Yeah.
Or commentate.
Yeah, true.
Commentate, present. All right. So there's some news that's come to light coming out of the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic that we'll just quickly touch on. The news of Amigene Metcalfe at the Magic. Do one of you want to break it down for us, and we'll get this discussion underway?
I don't really want to break it down as much as just acknowledge Amigene, really. I mean, gee, what is she, Magic player number 1? I mean, she's given a fair chunk of her life to that franchise, and I really feel for her. I mean, she had a hell of a season last season, and I can remember her, at the post-match interviews, each time after you were off air, you'd say, oh, mate, well, you've got to find some shooters or so. Then she said, oh, I know. And then I thought, with the acquiring Caitlin Bassett and Chiara Semple, and I thought things this year were going to be so much better for them, and they just haven't gone their way, and I just wish her well.
Yeah, absolutely. And off that, I guess if we get time to kind of dive into why they're not doing so well, I know everyone will have their opinions and, their little sideline armchair critiques and whatnot. But for me, I just feel like the Magic as a franchise probably need to have a look at how they're approaching their setup and their season. I know that the girls are living all over the region. You've got Caitlin Bassett living out in the Mount. You've got players living in Hamilton, some in Rotorua. And they're hardly ever together during the week. They're doing a lot of separate training, come together when they can. And I know you're balancing that with semi-professional netball and people having lives and jobs, and so it's a really hard balance. But I just wonder if there needs to be some sort of reapproach in that situation, because You know, we hear them say that they are a happy team, they're loving each other and loving life, but that's definitely not showing on court. So what's the issue? Where is it breaking down?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what comes of the Magic in 2022, but I mean, we've still got the rest of 2021 to go, but I think with this news coming to light, I really hope that they really get stuck in and really pull it together for Amigene for the rest of the season, because like you say, Jenny, she's done a lot.
Yeah, the only thing, and the other thing I'd add is you know, now that we know, you know, the way the franchise itself was sort of financially disintegrating around her, and you know, that cannot have been easy. And I just think, you know, money makes a big difference.
It sure does. Well, Amigene, we're wishing you all the very best, and thank you for everything that you've done for the Magic this far anyway. Well, Korua, that is us. Felt like the time flew by this week.
Sure did. So much to digest.
Yes, great conversations. Whānau, if you have anything that you'd like to say on any of the matters that we have spoken about today, or if you have any new ideas of your own, please drop us a comment below. We'd love to talk about them. Thank you so much for joining me, Korua. All the very best for weekend duties ahead.
All the very best for your big final.
Yes, it's very, very exciting. Don't forget, Whānau, the National Netball League final will be coming to you live this Sunday afternoon from Trusts Arena, and me and Storm will catch you there. Until next week, hei kona mai.